Hola, muy buenas a todos. En este vídeo os voy a contar cómo aprendí español en solo un año y cómo lo puedes hacer tú también. Hostia, ya tengo ganas de hacer todo el vídeo en español, pero bueno, empezamos, pero en inglés. So yes, it is possible to learn Spanish in just 1 year. And if you're like me, you probably started learning Spanish in high school, taking Spanish 1, 2, 3, 4, or AP Spanish. And of course, those classes help, but you won't become fluent from those classes alone, and you probably already know that. And so let's talk about how to take it to the next level and actually become fluent. So before we do that, let's talk about why you're learning Spanish. Well, if you're like me, you probably wanted to learn Spanish because it's really useful and it's honestly a really great language. And when you finally speak it, it's a really great feeling. But just like any other language out there, it's still hard. There's still a lot to learn and a lot to do. And I'm gonna save you guys some time, but ultimately, the key to learning Spanish is the same as any other language out there. And that's having confidence and forcing yourself to speak. Speak, 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 and I mean actually speak with natives and get out of your comfort zone. Create immersion. But how do you get to that level in the first place? Let's start with that. So if you're an English speaker like me, then today's your lucky day because being an English speaker gives you a huge advantage in learning Spanish because the two languages are very similar. You've already probably noticed that a lot of Spanish words are very similar to English words, and usually if you don't remember the word in Spanish, you can think of it in English, and that's probably the same way you say it in Spanish. And sentences are constructed the same way in Spanish as they are in English, and so you probably have a pretty good chance of translating things from Spanish to English and vice versa in your head, and it'll probably be right. But okay, now if you're like me, then you're probably also teaching yourself Spanish. You're learning on your own. And so how do you do that outside of the classroom? Well, my friends, you're on your own. And so your biggest asset is the internet. The internet is mankind's single greatest repository of information in the world. And guess what? It's free, except for your internet bill, of course. And so that's gonna be your biggest source of information and your biggest tool. So, what's step one? Firstly, you need to find something that you like about the language and about the culture. You need to get hooked because learning a language is really fun and exciting at first, but everyone reaches a point where it gets boring and they don't want to do it anymore. And so when you find something you like about the language, it motivates you to keep on learning, and learning becomes more fun and less of a chore. Two, learn as many basic phrases and words as you can. Things like farewells and greetings and asking for directions and naming foods. You'll be surprised just how far you can get in a conversation with those things alone, especially when you use them with confidence. I personally spent approximately 2 to 3 weeks at this stage before I felt comfortable moving on. Now third, after those basic phrases are out of the way, conjugations. Just focus on your conjugations. Now if you're an English speaker, you're lucky because Spanish tenses are almost a perfect analog to English tenses, and they're used almost the exact same way. And so honestly, just find a table with all of the Spanish conjugations and tenses and just sit down and learn them. Learning conjugations and tenses are probably the hardest thing you're gonna have to do, and they kind of go hand in hand, so it's best to learn them together. I spent months learning the conjugations and the tenses, and by the end of my first year learning Spanish, I still couldn't say I knew them perfectly, and that's totally fine. But the sooner you start, the better, I can promise you that. 4, learn as many common nouns and verbs as possible. Now, before you get to the step, make sure you at least have a basic understanding of Spanish tenses and conjugations, because unless you do that, then this step is kind of pointless. I recommend going online and finding a website like Spanish Dict and just sitting down with a table of the 50 most popular nouns and verbs and just learning them, just like memorizing them. And this step is a lot easier than you might think. I personally did this step in about a week or two, just because so many Spanish words are similar to English words, especially if you're learning Latin American Spanish. But if you do this step correctly, then you should be able to conjugate verbs, put sentences together, and you'll probably know quite a few nouns. And so at this point, you'll know how to have a basic conversation. And it's only been like, what, a couple months? And so we go right into step 5. Congratulations, you can now conjugate verbs, put sentences together, and have basic conversations. And this is an ongoing step. I would say step 5 is the forever step. You just keep on adding nouns and verbs to the list, and just keep on making sentences. Step 6. At this point, you're no longer a beginner. You're probably starting to get more advanced. So now it's time to take on the grammar. And when I say grammar, I mean learning how to use the subjunctive, how to use passive voice, how to use reflexive verbs. Again, the internet's your biggest tool. You can probably Google all this stuff. That's what I did. and you can probably learn it all in just a few months. Admittedly, it takes a while. I spent probably 3 to 4 months doing this, but after you've tackled the grammatical points, you'll know how to put sentences together and use the subjunctive and reflexive verbs, and you're gonna start sounding a lot more like a native speaker by this point. Now I honestly don't remember what step this is, but the last step. This is the last thing left for you to do, and this is arguably the most important one. This is what's gonna make you fluent in 1 year. I did all the rest of the steps within 7 to 8 months, but this step is what got me to fluency by the end of my first year, and that is practicing. Speak, speak, speak. Whatever chance you have, take it and just speak. Preferably with natives, even with yourself, or even with other people learning Spanish. Just speak. Speak, speak, speak. And this is so much easier said than done because it's really hard to put sentences together on the spot. It's very hard to understand people speak, and being corrected definitely crushes your ego a little bit, but it's important because once you get over those hurdles, fluency is so easy to attain. This right here, guys, is how you reach exponential growth and how you'll become fluent in Spanish. If you can't find any natives, then do what I did. Go online. There's a ton of apps out there. I personally use Discord. If you want to know what Discord channels I used, then just ask the question down in the comments below and I'll recommend some servers. There's genuine dedicated servers on Discord for people learning Spanish and English, and they kind of just help each other out. It's really useful, really easy. And guys, that in a nutshell is how I learned Spanish in just 1 year. This video was just supposed to be a rough outline of what I did to learn Spanish as fast as I did. And I truly believe if I can do it, then so can anyone else. But the main thing is that you have to begin. That's all that matters. All right, guys, that was it. If you guys found this video helpful and you enjoyed hearing me speak and you got something from this, well, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below for the algorithm. And if you want to see more videos of me speaking Spanish or learning more about how I learned Spanish, then of course do everything I just said. And yeah, my name is Ian. I'm an American polyglot, and yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. And hopefully by then you'll be speaking Spanish, right? And you'll be commenting on my videos in Spanish. That's what I want to see. But anyways, until next time, peace.